Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 462, and today we're doing battle with Samira Gnar. And so, before we dive into the gameplay, I'm wanting to say, as we are here in the spoiler season with the Fates Voyage Onward stuff being spoiled each day, I still haven't really fully fleshed out how I want to handle this kind of time of the year. It's like I don't want to play freeform, and that's what's happening right now. The standard and the eternal formats are kind of stale. It only matters to like the 5 people that care about hitting the top 10 for World's Ladder rankings, and the hype is all tied to the new set coming out. And so in the past, I would just do my kind of preview stuff for the new cards attached to these Battles with Bust videos. I don't really want to do that anymore. I want to pull them out and have that be a separate piece of focus. And so what I kind of want to be doing in that space is focusing more in on those preview style things, but also not having 2 days worth of previews take up an hour of time. And so bear with me a little bit now that Riot has kind of solidified this format for the new sets coming out every 3 months. I'd like to kind of better solidify what I intend to do in that space as well. But it's just going to take me a little bit of time to get kind of acclimated to it and get it in a format that I like it. And so we'll be working on that going forward. So with that in mind, as the spoiler season is here, I don't intend for this video to be the usual hour long. Only going to look to spend about a half hour on this one today, and that's the kind of space that we'll look to take up as we progress through the spoiler seasons now and in the future. And so the deck before us today, and what is going to be our last Heart of the Huntress battles with Bust, is we're playing Samira Gnar. And so it, of course, looks quite familiar to the Elise version of the Warden of the Tribes deck that Infini Patrons popularized at the end of the Eternal season, but it's got a few little flavors and tastes that I like that you don't really get coming out of the Shadow Isles version. And so the Shadow Isles version gets to play Elise because she's a spider. Then it also gets to play some removal spells like Shadow Isles Calling Strike, and it gets to play Quietus, and then it has Atrocities at the top end as a way to attack the opponent's health total directly without actually using a combat. And so that's all well and good. I think it's safe to say that's one of the more powerful lists and powerful lineups that you can bring in Eternal, but I think that there's a few differences that we can really kind of come out here and try and take advantage of. And so the thing that I have going on with our version here is the unit package is pretty much the same. The Omen Hawks, the Blacksmith, the Wolves, the Saurions, the Yetis, and the Warden of the Tribes, and then also Wild Mysticism if you want to count the little 2/2 Feral Mystic as a unit before it hits Beast Mode at Enlightened. But the thing that I've really liked to bring to this deck is now Buried in Ice. My problem with this style of deck as we went into the Eternal Open was that if you really want to interact well with Warden of the Tribes, you can do it. And so you can come out, you can play Ruination, you can play Castigate, you can play some kind of just big board AoE wipe, and that's enough to get the Warden of the Tribes off the board, and they typically can't recover from it. And so our answer with that kind of thought and feel is just playing Buried in Ice. You can play this in any of the flavors of the Warden of the Tribes deck that you want, but I think Buried in Ice is quite strong in this current format as it is. And so that's what I recommend regardless of the second faction that you want to play. I think you should be considering to play Buried in Ice in your Warden of the Tribe style deck. Now, moving away from Shadow Isles and into Noxus, we get a few different treats that you typically wouldn't get out of the Shadow Isles versions. First and foremost, you get to play Samira, who, while is not a subtyped champion as you would get out of an Elise, that singular subtype isn't really that big of a deal. And I think that there's no denying that Samira is just leagues more powerful than anything that you would ever get out of Elise. And so it's most certainly a champion-based upgrade going from Elise over to Samira, but then we get a couple of different cards, right? We have Calling Strike, which is just straight up better than the Shadow Isles version, the Shadow Isles version being slow and then also taking more mana to try and take down a champion. Just a very powerful card in this format, and on its own being able to kill Samira or Action or whoever you want to in that small space, but then also tying in nicely with the Frostbites we get from the Brittle Steels and the Three Sisters and the like. Just a very powerful all-around removal spell in this format. But the big addition that we get out of Noxus is going to be playing Decisive Maneuver, the Rico Rex special, if you will. We're not playing Battle Furies in here, which we probably should be, but Decisive Maneuver is an incredibly powerful card in terms of It gives us just like a little bit of bad interactivity should we need it. So if our opponent is coming at us with a giant overwhelm unit or something, we can still potentially stun it out of combat. But the vast majority of the time, you're looking to use this as the combat buff. And so the way that this will typically play out is we'll have 3 or 4 overwhelm units on the board. The opponent's going to block our biggest overwhelm unit. Then we stun that blocker out of combat, so our overwhelm gets to deal the full amount of damage, and then spreading this +2 stats to our other overwhelm based units allows them to get in more damage as well. And so the decisive maneuver on its own functions very similar to what we would be getting out of a card like Atrocity, as it's typically responsible for doing 10, 12 damage directly to the opponent's face. But it does have that little bit of extra interactivity to it in the sense that you can defensively stun with it or remove an important piece of the opponent's board out of combat for the turn. And so it's a little bit more interactive than you would get from the Atrocity. The Atrocity doesn't really do too much other than finish off the game, to where Decisive Maneuver has just a little bit more interactivity tied into its kit. And so that's it. That's the deck we're doing battle with today. I checked in on the pay-to-win price, and we are all good. And I did want to check in on our ladder rank. We're currently at 35. That's not bad. Like I haven't really played too much, too much constructed after the open. Right, we came out and we played a bit of Singleton, but in terms of ladder grinding, I haven't really brought a whole lot of that forth. And so just like at the gym and stuff is where I've been really hitting home with this deck and still having quite a bit of success in terms of climbing. So let's see what old 4LW's up to, bringing a little bit of Sejuani Teemo to the to the ladder today. A bit odd to see. I'm curious what his game is here. 4LW, extremely strong player. He's hit rank 1 on the ladder multiple times. I'm pretty sure he's straight up won a few of the Runeterra opens, and so see if we can't fell the Sejuani deck here at the end of the day. A little bit of Acorn coming in. I'm not super interested in interacting with Acorn. You can Brittle Steel him if you want to stop that card bonus going to the hand. Oh, we've got 2 of them. Like, I see this stuff and then I just worry that we're going to actually be up against some kind of experimental evolution, whatever that card is called, the augmented evolution, and then we're actually just out here playing against elusives, and so we'll see what turns up here. I'm not entirely sold on us on us playing against a real Gangplank Sejuani deck at this moment. But reasonable work from Samira, just in that same spot to where if that Samira was a Elise, who cares, right? She's going to deal 3 points of damage. The little spiderling's probably going to get through for damage, but she doesn't provide that interactivity that we're able to get out of Samira. And so just definitely a lot of strength that we get out of her actions. All right, I'm fine to just go ahead and get in front of this this innovative blacksmith. Our Omen Hawk's gonna be shut down pretty quickly from this point forward, and then I don't want to get in the space to where we also need a combat trick to take this down with Samira. And so, like, the main thing I'm kind of looking to pull off with this point now is going to be we can just hook in the innovative blacksmith with Samira, and then still potentially Brittle Steel if we need to. So if we attack, an opponent has a combat trick to try and stop our Samira, we can just Brittle Steel and help protect her.
There are 2 types of people, the quick and the dead.
But it's been interesting. I played so much Samira Gnar before the open. Not this deck, but in terms of using Samira Gnar with Bandle City, and it's like a discard aggro kind of deck. And then whenever you're wanting to flip your Gnars, you just have these flares in hand, and you have access to things like Electro Harpoon. It was just like the interactivity that we got from all of these friends was so incredibly strong. It's just like 1 or 2 cards away from actually being a real deck. But it is kind of nice to come back here, still get some of these nice Samira Gnar based interactions. Hopefully get some So that's some pretty good shutdowns as we go. Alright, so let's get this Samira into combat. I'm kind of leaning more in towards now just taking down this augmented clockling. Like, we battle everything that he has on board pretty well. And then if he wants to, you know, come in and flash freeze our Samira or something, it's not nearly as scary. Oh, that's big time, though. That's definitely a big time Battle Fury coming in. And so our Samira is going to go, but, you know, we can handle this pretty well, right? We have a Brittle Steel now that can take away all of this unit's power. We have the Gnar Wallop in hand to potentially knock it out of combat as well. And then the real game breaker, the decisive maneuvers hanging out in hand, give us another way to potentially answer that guy. And so, pretty good stuff, you know. We have a nice bit of interactivity in terms of shutting down this big-ass Battle Fury unit. I was curious how much that Battle Fury cost. I think he cast it for 5. That seems like it was about right. I noted he had 5 mana rolling around on that turn. So, I'm just going to assume that that's where we're still at. Alright, let's just pass. He has to get into combat here. I don't want to be playing one of these really expensive units in this space. And you can potentially find a pretty good decisive maneuver here if it's going to boost up one of our other units. And so our blocks didn't really pan out that way. But if, say, he hooked our Gnar with Sejuani and then we had the 0-4 Sarion down here in front of the Tusk Speaker, we could have picked up something that way. Not quite how it came together, but, you know, pretty interesting options in that space. I don't think we want to really interact with the Sejuani here. I mean, I guess we could wallop Sejuani. Protect our Sarion. Maybe that's the way to go about it. Like, we're kind of far away from getting a Warden of the Tribe's kill next turn. Like, if we want to play the Warden, we can't play the decisive maneuvers, but I think the Warden's probably... Oh shit, we were mana short. I was going to say, I guess we would love to play the Warden, but we can't quite do it. Alright, let's just pick up a Blacksmith. I'll go with the combat reel here. It's not super exciting on this board given how our mana's played out, but the stat line is still pretty good. Wanting to see them spend some mana before we get really invested in this combat, though. I didn't want to be Gnar challenging this augmented clockling and then just having the opponent just like be fully up on like harsh winds mana and everything. And so we'll see how it plays out. This is striking me to be like more and more of a harsh winds kind of play. Just the way that they're taking it here quite slow. And so I think this is a good pokey stick. It does let us spend that mana. So that we can get a little bit further away with like running out of space with our innovative Blacksmith. I think this all looks pretty good now. Alright, he's got that Sejuani flip. Pretty scary. Well, I don't want to get super invested in this combat. It's like we're about to pick up on these Warden of the Tribes turns to where if we play the Warden and opponent blocks and then has Sejuani effects, we at least just don't lose all of our units. And that's what looks to be like a bit of a bummer here. So it's like I don't want to just get everybody on board and then have them fail. But I mean, if we lose 2 units in this space, I guess it's not the end of the world. But let's take it slow. He's going to have a Mystic shot to face. I don't want to just get blown up right away. Yep. So we only lose 2 units instead of 3. This is where we're gonna zing him, though, right? We're gonna decisive maneuvers down this clockling and then try and take down Sejuani with one of our blockers in the back line, now having the 7 attack. It's not gonna work how we want. He has the impact on the blacksmith. That's a bit of a bummer. A bit of a bummer. It's like the next thing we have to start to worry about is if he lands in a spot to where he's just got enough burn to take us down. Alright, so I mean, I'm a little suspicious of what's about to happen here, but we're running out of stuff to do. So like just a singular burn spell is going to cause us a lot of problems next turn. But we'll see if we can't pick up just a little bit more interactivity along the way. Just the augmented clockling just going ham out here with this Battle Fury. You gotta love it. You gotta love to see it. So again, this isn't super amazing. I don't feel like we're gonna get a lot of really positive combats out of this, but the big thing out of getting the Warden of the Tribes down here is if he does come in and drop a burn spell to the face and get that Sejuani thing happening, then we at least don't lose our units in the combat. So I think we're just kind of stuck at this point, sending everybody in. It's tough for him to just not have progress, or not have a burn spell after drawing off the progress day. But I mean, we can't just sit back forever. But I think this illustrates the point pretty well. He wants to be frostbiting the team and then getting blocks in with Sejuani and these other dudes, and he can do that now, right? He can get these blocks in, but our units aren't dying at this point. So that's the real disaster, is if these units get into combat and then die later. So we got to pick up a flash freeze or something. Didn't find it. GG. That's tough. Like, as we were looking to go into the Open this season, I was very interested in Gangplank Sejuani because of what just happened to us right there, in the sense that our deck does not handle Sejuani very well. And just having her on the board, just being a giant landmark that says, LOL, Warden of the Tribes, you're not dealing any damage this turn. It's a very interesting space for the deck to be in. But I couldn't pull the trigger on that kind of thing. It's like, Gangplank Sejuani is one of those decks that's almost enough into my wheelhouse to feel comfortable with it, but oh shit, it's not quite there. I didn't mean to hang on to this Warden of the Tribes. I don't want this 8-cost card against Control Anivia that we're just never going to be playing. And so I decided that I would slow it down and hang on to the Wild Mysticism. Like, it's not terrible to play the Mysticism on turn 3 and then whatever on turn 4, but the Warden of the Tribes was he was not our intended keep. But the opponent's just going to sit around and do fuck all. It feels pretty good to get some of this ramp going. Let's try. Like, I'm not opposed on our the opponent's next combat. Like, if our Gnar doesn't flip right here, to just play Samira and throw a flare at the face. So it didn't come down as necessity that way, but you don't always have to be in the mindset of just getting massive value off of these Samiras. Boy, we need something here though, and doesn't really do a ton. I don't really want to be overbanking 1,000 mana here. We just whiffed. Complete whiff, but just looking for any of the bonus health ones. That sucks. A bit of a bummer.
Don't ask for permission.
All right, let's see if we can't pop off with Samira, though. We got a ton of mana. We got a lot of real chances to do a lot of work here. Like, I definitely want to troll chant our Gnar. We can just replay the other Samira. It's like we do have that option to where if we really want to try and flip her and have her pop off this turn, we could just send the flare to the face and then play the all out, but
No need to make a name for
let's just keep the stats up on her. I don't want to drop her on the board and then just have her die to Vile Feast. Oh my god, what a disaster. Okay. Well then. We're just gonna be flying solo with Warden of the Tribes here at some point. What else are we supposed to do? Alright. Here's a Warden. Oh my god, what a disaster. Yep. Just like his removal gets to line up perfectly now. What you got for us? We can get this singular Rhymefang Wolf on the board. I mean, I think I feel okay about it. Like, I don't feel good about it, but we do still have this, like, upcycled Rake in hand. And it does give us the potential to come in and get some good attacks going. Not going to take this Anivia off the board just yet. Like, I don't want her to die and then just start running into Rekindlers on this next turn.
Let's soar! A world in perfect stillness.
Alright, so we should be able to do a little bit more on this next round. Like, you know, if we come out and run into the Ruination or something, then, you know, just fucking fine, whatever. But we have some chances to pop off. It's fairly strong. We'll just give them the ultimate incentive to play the Ruination next turn, right? We'll play Buried in Ice. We'll take all of his units into the Frozen Tombs. And now we could come into this next turn and have opponent go, LOL. Thanks for protecting all of my units. But I think this is okay. I don't think we have to worry about the Ruination now that he's put this Anivia on the board, but like we are definitely hurting in this space. Oh, okay. Okay. I guess we should have worried about the Ruination a little bit more. But that game was just disaster mode the whole way. All right, but let's get one more game in. I feel okay about 3, getting to that half-hour mark, and then we'll follow up here in just a moment with some preview talk for you. So, not going away just yet. Just got it in separate videos, you know. All right, the Rico Rex special. See what we can do. This is actually tempting to hang on to multiples of these brittle steels. Like we have to be combating early with this Samira and not necessarily on the attack. And so let's just hang on to both of those. I think this will still curve out nicely when we bank on the first turn for 1 brittle steel, then add Samira on turn 2, and then we can brittle steel down whatever she's in front of, and then on turn 3 we could potentially get a hook in, and then turn 4 start dropping Yetis. Like I think that all works out pretty nicely.
To make a name for myself, just an impression. Is this your best?
Alright, there is some argument to kind of just go full damage prevent mode, right? To where we block one unit and then brittle and get the kill and then lose our Samira and then brittle steal the other one. I don't think we're quite to that level of danger, and so I'm not going to approach it that way.
No problem.
Still feels decent here though, right? We can take this Boisterous Host off of the board. If he wants to play some kind of weird combat trick or whatever here, we still got Brittle Steels. How much do we care about this? I mean, that took all of his mana. Let's just keep our Samira protected. This can be pretty tough for them to recover from in terms of board width, right? He is doing this hallowed thing to where, you know, you get the Overwhelm unit with the hallowed boost on it. We don't interact with that super well, but I think this is fine otherwise. Now we need to just throw a unit in front of the butler. I'm leaning towards Gnar. Like, it is pretty nice to have these Ancient Yetis just getting cheaper and cheaper. And we still get the Pokey Stick this way as well. You fought hard, Gnar. You fought hard. Alright. Still, you know, awkward spot for opponent. Most of their units are in the small space, and so if we get the opportunity to just load up Samira, we can kill just pretty much anything in their deck. I think I just want to keep passing. I was going to say, I want to see how deep he's going to go with his plays. Like, if we completely got out of this turn with no attack, I think that would have felt pretty good. But now that he's added a couple of guys and spent his mana, we should be good to send in these regular attacks. See if we can't get build up to the big Warden hit. Say Captain Kilrack's here to take away half of your health. That's a scary one, right? Like I worry about another combat trick coming in and just doming us. Not a ton we can do about it. I guess we could have Calling Struck him before combat, but like I don't know the combat tricks that this deck plays. And if it gets to come in and like we Calling Strike and then he has a combat trick, it's just a pure disaster from that point. And so I feel pretty decent just adding a unit to the board. Alright, but we got 4, 9, 10, 11, 12 with the Omen Hawk, 13 off the first flare, 14 off the second flare, then Pokey Stick gets us to lethal. So we're just going to come out and go for it. We're out of Decimate range at the moment, which is kind of nice, and he can't play Nox and Fervors either, so I think we're pretty okay in terms of getting this burn plan off. Definitely feel better now that he didn't have interactivity for this Ancient Yeti.
The best lies are beautiful.
All right, my dude, here come the burns. I had to stop and see that one roll through. It's like we had that chance to we had that chance to like try and just respond to the opponent's burn spell as they were going to play one. And as I saw those cards roll through, I was like, oh fuck, we messed this up, didn't we? That didn't go well. But he was 1 damage short at the end of the day. GG. So good stuff. We could pull this up, talk about it a little bit more. Again, there's all kinds of flavors of these Wardens of the Tribe decks you can be out here running out and about with. I suspect that he's going to continue to see a lot of popularity in the upcoming standard format if no changes happen to Cosmic Call, right? So this Warden of the Tribe's idea was basically a big answer to the Cosmic Call decks in the sense that they're just going to sit around and durdle and not do anything until like turn 8 or 9 of the game. Then on turn 8, before they're able to do their big stuff, or turn 7, if you had a Wild Mysticism, you just drop your big Warden of the Tribes and crush them before they're able to take advantage of those Cosmic Calls. And so I think this thing will probably still be around. It's still a very powerful archetype in the space of Standard. And there's just a lot of different flavors that you can run around with this. And so it's definitely an interesting deck to keep in mind as this upcoming Standard season approaches. And then, of course, as the next Eternal season gets here in a couple of months down the road. And so, good set of games. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.